Yeah. So, Phil, thanks for joining us, man. I've known you for what, 10 years or so. We met on a great mastermind group back in the day. Seems like, a lifetime ago, but we stood in contact. We spent some good times I think we were in Phoenix together, right? I think we were in Vegas together. And then, a couple of years ago when I was in Boston, you took me to this fantastic Italian restaurant for lunch. And I want to thank you for all that, man. Thanks for your friendship throughout all these years. And I know that I have somebody to go to when I have real estate questions or referrals out there in the Boston, New Hampshire, New England area. That's you, my man. That's you.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
So, yeah, thanks so much for joining us today, Phil. For the audience who doesn't know you, why don't you take a second to introduce yourself, who you are, what areas you work in, how long in the business, and what do you really focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. And Vic, I love what you guys have going on with this little series. Getting people all across the country connected is a really cool thing. So, kudos to you, and love seeing your success. But good stuff. So I've been in the industry now for 13 years, which is pretty incredible at this point, thinking back on that. I was first licensed while I was in college and started doing rentals throughout the city. Because downtown Boston, very similar, I'm sure, from some aspect as Los Angeles. The rental market in those commissions on those can be pretty substantial as you add them up. I joined a team and started a co-team with 6 agents with Sarah Meridian, who, Vic, I know you know, and have met at some of our events in the past.
Yep.
And more recently, I
Really nice.
started my own real estate brokerage after some time with Compass, and operate just a small team at this point from a sales perspective, and I love it. I'm a little bit more choosy with my clients, which has made it more enjoyable for me. And I think real estate is just a great industry to be in. You get to meet so many different people, and a lot of people don't think that you have much bandwidth outside of your local market. But, being connected, Rethink Council, different conventions, it is a great industry to be part of.
You make some great connections, right? Being part of these mastermind groups and, of course, connecting with agents across the country. That's how you and I ended up connecting. And, 10 years later, we're still friends and constantly in communication. So thanks for joining us today. One of the things that I know is really important to you is investing in real estate. So I know that, you went from licensing in college, you worked with a couple of different brokerages, you started your own brokerage, but let's not be shy here. Phil, you own over 100 rental properties right now. Isn't that right?
Yes, finally cracked over 100 units earlier this year, and through mentorship
Yeah.
of my old boss, who's with the Berkshire Hathaway in Boston. He recommended that instead of kind of just going out and spending commission money that we were earning in 2013, 2014 on vacations, put them into a 3-family, and that really kind of piqued my interest in. I have a small team on the property management side for my properties up in New Hampshire
Mhm.
that handles the day-to-day to that, which allows me to kind of free up some time. But I think there's so many ways that we can pivot within our industry, whether you're within sales, investing, or getting into flipping, developing, building, lending. There's so many different things that we can pivot to that and that's just one of the ways that I did it was on the investing side. So it's
That's
a fun little thing that I have going on.
So Nick Warren was your mentor, correct? Out of Boston?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nick, when I was on his 30th birthday party and I was 21 or 22. So, we really had a really great group of agents within that office. And, in 2013, 2014, 2015 within Boston, the city really kind of grew from a development standpoint where, historically everything was 3 or 4 story brownstones, the
Mhm.
quintessential Boston. And our city went very vertical. Now that there's probably 6 or 8 stories, 6 or 8 buildings that are more than 40 or 50 stories each, has been, really cool to be within the industry in a time in downtown Boston.
Wow, wow, that's a big change from what it was, right? So
Yeah.
very cool, man. And I know Nick, great guy. I'm so happy that he mentored you and you've hit your goal of 100 units. I remember when
Yeah.
you and I were having lunch in Boston a couple of years back, you were right around the 80, 85 unit mark, and you were like, Vic, I'm going to hit 100, dude. And I was like, hell yeah. And you did it.
Yeah.
So, for those of you watching, Phil doesn't just talk it. He really lives it, which is why I asked him specifically to be on here. So listen up to what this young man has to say. Because I think you were 21 when you started, right? And you're like 22 now.
I was no, the gray hairs are really grown in. I was 19 when I was first licensed. We probably met right around the time that I was 21 or 22.
Yeah.
22 part of as when I was part of the Rethink Council, and have been doing it since.
That's awesome, man. I mean, it's amazing how this business, when you really commit to it, allows you to grow exponentially in ways that maybe some of us have only dreamed of. So for our newer agents watching this right now, consistency. It doesn't happen overnight. It's consistency. You're going to take some wins, you're going to take some losses, but you got to keep moving forward. And one day you can end up like Phil and have, 100 units under your belt. And that's what it's about. He's the
Yeah.
monopoly man right here. So, Phil, what is your average price point in the Boston, New England area?
So, kind of in two segments. In downtown Boston, my average sales price of a client is right around like 1.5 million. That's going to get you a nice 2 to 3 bedroom condo. As you get a little bit closer, it might be, in a 1 bedroom plus den on average to 2 bedroom. But there are a number of markets like South Boston, Somerville, where 1 million even will get you, a really nice updated 2 to 3 bedroom that's going to be somewhere in like the 12 to 1400 square foot range. As you're
And that's
downtown,
for is that for a condo in the southeast or is that for a
yeah,
house?
that's for a condo. That's for a
Okay.
condo. Um, Out in the suburbs, around 900 to $1 million is going to get you, a 3 to 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath, 18 to 2,000 square foot home in most of the suburbs within 35 or 40-minute commute into Boston.
Yeah. God. So you mentioned South Boston, and I automatically go to the movie The Departed with Jack Nicholson and Leonardo DiCaprio. Can you give us your best Southie accent right now? I mean, is it park the car in the garage? Is that a real thing?
I've always said that I have one of the most like monotoned Massachusetts, Boston accents. But get 3 or 4 vodka sodas in me on a Friday or Saturday night, and then yes, you will get it, Vic. But I just can't do it off the cuff. It's going to have to be after a couple of drinks.
I love it, man. I love it. I love it. I love that. But we're having a little bit of fun here, but I know we're trying to also talk some business. But hey, guys, this is two old friends catching up, you know? So 1.5 million for a condo in the city. And if you want to go to the suburbs, you can get yourself a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom for between 900 and a million, right? That's kind of
Yep.
what I'm hearing. Okay.
Yep.
Now, I know a lot about history, and I'm sure I mean, obviously you know your area too, but for people who aren't familiar with the Boston marketplace, what is Boston really famous for, right? Like Boston, what is it famous for? I mean, Celtics, Red Sox, right? Like,
Yeah. So we're very fortunate. I think of like what's the backbone of Boston more or less, right? We're very sports oriented. I think we're fortunate enough to have a professional team playing each month out of the year, whether it's the Red Sox, the Bruins, the Celtics, the Patriots. So we're very fortunate from that standpoint. I think quintessential Boston is kind of a fall day with a cup of clam chowder. But geographically we're New England, more or less, as a whole, is such a small area. If you go from Vermont down to Rhode Island, I would be curious if it's longer from a distance standpoint than what California is, and it's probably not. So you have the ability to get from downtown Boston or the suburbs where I do most of my business up into the mountains in the summer or the lakes. If you want to go skiing in the winter, you have that, but also the ability to
Uh-oh.
get down into
Oh,
Rhode
there you
Island.
go.
Oh, you got me now. Sorry.
Yeah, cut out for just a
Um,
second.
you have the ability to get down into like Rhode Island to where the beaches are, the Capes, Nantucket, in islands. It's a really, geographically an interesting place where you get something. Everybody gets something, each season of the year.
I loved my time there, and I think you're absolutely correct. I was able to, walk the Liberty Trail. I'm a runner, right? So I got to run the Liberty Trail. So all this, amazing American history, and everything is so close together. You're able to go from, one section to the other section in a relatively short amount of time. And man, I was amazed as how close everything was, how convenient it was. It's a major city, but it feels more like a small town the way it's constructed and the way things are placed. That's how I felt, anyways. And you're right. Heading down to the Cape, I got a chance to go to Martha's Vineyard when I was down there, pass through Rhode Island, and I really enjoyed my time. It's a beautiful area, and highly recommend anybody, if you haven't been to Boston before, check that place out. It's an amazing region. And I'm very happy to know somebody like you, who's definitely a Boston insider there. So let's talk about some real estate stuff now, okay? Imagine somebody from Los Angeles or any part of the country is going to be relocating to your neck of the woods in Boston. What are some key factors they need to know when moving to your area that maybe are completely different or unique to your marketplace than anywhere else in the country?
Yeah. One of the biggest differentiators, and I think why Boston had such a large growth within the past, 6 years leading up to 2020, is that we have an international airport that is just 10 minutes in an Uber ride from the city center, like downtown Back Bay area. You can get to Logan Airport in
Logan
10 to
Airport.
15 minutes,
Yeah.
which, you can't do that in LA. You can't do that in Miami. You can't do that in New York, which is really kind of one of the big pieces. But, what are things that people that are looking to move to Boston should be considering? It is proximity into Boston and how close you need to be able to get. We have commuter rail systems from Newburyport and Rockport, which is about an hour and 10 minutes to get down into North Station, but a drive of that time is going to be about an hour and a half. And that's as far east as you can really go from Boston, and really as far north, staying within Massachusetts, that you can go. The suburbs west of the city are, kind of the most desirable for younger families, of professionals that are looking to get down into the financial district and things along the lines of that. But even as for young professionals, markets like Somerville, Medford are more of the up and coming neighborhoods just outside of Boston that create a little bit more of an affordability. And you have, trees, whereas in downtown Boston or like in South Boston, you do have a couple small parks, but in those other markets is where you're going to really have like a neighborhood feel.
Do you guys have new construction down there in Somerville and those areas, or is it kind of resale only? Because I know
So
Boston's an old marketplace.
it is. We've started to see more new construction, luxury condos and high rises or mid rise buildings, of 8 to 10 stories, being built in those communities. However, the majority of those units that are going to be newer construction are really just going to be retrofit buildings from 1910. That a developer has gone in down to the studs and done everything new, and converted a 3-family into a 4-family of brand new condos.
Gotcha.
But very rarely are you seeing much new ground up construction.
So they're taking the old buildings, breaking them down to the studs, and just building on top is what it sounds like, right?
More, yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's the cradle of America right there in Boston. And, it's one of the oldest marketplaces there in Philadelphia, obviously. And so, it's tightly packed if you guys haven't been there before. Very dense, an urban mecca, if you would. So let me ask you this, Phil. Again, people relocating to your area, what are some of the biggest employers? What are some of the biggest industries where people, make their living at?
So Boston and Greater Boston is really kind of comprised of the meds and eds. Eds
Meds
as
and
in
eds.
education. You have Harvard, MIT, Boston College, BU, Northeastern, which is a phenomenal school, and that's the fifth school that I just named, right?
Yeah.
And then you have Mass General, Brigham and Women's Hospital, which is a top two, top three hospital in the world. Boston Children's, which is the top children hospital or second top children hospital in the country. We have though that's really the driving factor in backbone of our market, and I think why you look through a 40-year history of pricing within Greater Boston and the suburbs is in '08, downtown Boston depreciated about only 4 to 6%. Why I think is because of those meds and eds and being the backbone of our market.
2008, California, on average, lost about 42% equity because we had so many brand new builds, and they were building way out there in the sticks, like places like Moreno Valley and Marietta, and they're about 2 hours away from any major city, and they were building homes out there. We lost about 42% on average. You guys lost 6 to 8% in the
Yeah,
worst market since the Great Depression.
yeah. In downtown Boston, of course, certain
Yeah.
suburban markets, depreciated 20%, but nothing like what Arizona saw or a lot of those tertiary markets outside of the larger cities.
Yeah, I got you, man. Well, the meds and eds, something I learned today, meds and eds, that's
Yep.
what drives Boston's economy. I love that, man. I love that. So speaking of, real estate there in Boston, what are some of the unique things about the real estate process? Like for us here in California, we have a traditional 30-day escrow, 17 days for inspections, appraisals, and loan approval. We are an escrow state. We use escrow and title to close, not attorneys. Is there anything unique about the real estate sales process in the Boston marketplace that somebody relocating should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of those things that somebody that's relocating into Boston, their agent should really inform them right away in the first conversation that they have of how the process actually works. So we are an attorney state. The offer process on a property, whether it's in downtown Boston or out in the suburbs, is you go to a real estate agent would put together an offer to purchase. 7 to 10 days after that, you're going to be signing your purchase and sale document, which is a document that's drafted between the attorneys.
Okay.
And then from there, you're going to have about a 45-day period to obtain your mortgage, for the seller to finish everything that they need to do prior to closing.
Is
Um,
that 45 days total, or is that on top of the 7 to 10 days after you sign your attorney drafted purchase agreement?
that's 45 days after it's about a 60-day process in total. 45 to
Okay.
60 days. Yeah.
45 to 60 days from the time they say, hey, I want this house, Phil, write it up. The attorney takes 7 to 10 days to draft an actual contract. From
Yep.
that point in time, you got another 45 days to get your loan squared away.
Yep.
Okay. 45 to 65 days total. That's a big difference from us here in California, where we do everything in less than 30 days if possible. What about your guys' contingency timeframes? How long does a buyer have to do their due diligence and inspect the property to say, hey, you know what, I don't want this, or let's negotiate some repairs based upon inspections?
Yeah, great question. So typically, a buyer is going to complete all their due diligence within the period of signing the offer to purchase and the attorney completing the purchase and sale, and the parties signing that. So you have 7 to 10 days or so. In our market right now, like our suburban market is still very hot. Most properties are obtaining at least 2 to 3 offers. So those timeframes will be compressed into, for example, 3 or 5 days to sign the purchase and sale, just to try and put forth your best offer. And look, having a closing within 30 days in Massachusetts is definitely very common, especially if it's cash. And
Sure.
I like to preface that to my clients to make a more competitive offer if you have the ability to. But if you're financing, you're going to be typically 45 to 60 days.
Okay. Now, something I learned from our relocation rundown last week with my friend Rachel DeSalvo in New York City during that investigation period, any other outside buyer can come in and make the seller a better offer and can take the property from the buyer. Is that the case there in Boston as well, or is that just a New York thing?
No, we are a very consumer friendly market where once you sign the offer to purchase and deposit link or provide a check to the seller's agent, you now have the property under contract, or what we call in our MLS as contingent upon signing the purchase and sale.
Okay.
And you have your ability to do all your due diligence, and your home inspection, condo doc review if it's a condo, or any town ordinances that you want to look into before signing that document. And that property is yours,
Okay.
unless you look to technically renegotiate terms. Which at that point now you're out of contract, and if the seller had something in their back pocket, sure, they could absolutely give your money back and go with another offer. But
Ah,
we have a little bit more of a consumer protection there.
I understand. Well, that's good. That's what we have here in California. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be a good thing for the buyers, right? But it could also be something on the negative side for the sellers, because we've had a scenario here recently in my office. One of my agents, she had a better offer for the seller than what the seller accepted inside escrow. And every day, the listing agent was hoping and praying that these buyers would fall out so they can take our offer, right? Because it was
Yep.
better, like $100,000 better, Phil,
Okay.
right? But that other buyer didn't renege. They didn't, take their time on their diligence period, and they were able to, close the deal out, and our buyer was left crying in their soup, essentially. So
Hmm.
something that's unique there about how you guys do business, how we do business, and other parts of the country do business. I mean, that's what this whole Instagram, series is about, learning how real estate is done in different parts of the country. And we got our buddy Stephen Hale just joined us right now. Stephen's in DC, and he's going to be our guest in August for the same session that you're on right now, Phil. So nice
Love
to
it.
see you, Steve. Phil, I think you were on the council with Steve and I way back in the day.
Yeah,
So
and it's funny. I'm one of my clients is looking to relocate to DC. I just listed her condo out in the suburb, so I'm gonna have to hit up Steve. And I that actually this type of thing I think is great for anybody that's in business, just because we get caught up in our business so much where I'm not necessarily always thinking of all of that because I have all of this other stuff going on. So
yeah,
Steve, look at that.
he's
He's
right
going to be
there.
getting a phone call this afternoon.
You saw it right here live on the relocation rundown. We sent a referral from Boston to DC, so it's working. This is working. That's amazing. So one of the things, Phil, that you mentioned, when you were in college doing leasing, right? Now I know leasing is way different on the East Coast than it is here on the West Coast. What I mean by that is here on the West Coast, us agents, we get paid in peanuts, sometimes peanut shells to do leases. And I really mean that. Sometimes they'll give us, 3% of the total lease term, or even as low as $250 for a lease. It's like not even worth us doing, and our agents do it sometimes for the long game. They want to, get a good relationship and rapport with those tenants, because the tenants eventually will become buyers, right? And that's why our agents will do it. Now, I know a lot of cities on the East Coast, what they'll do is they'll charge at least 1 month's worth of rent for the lease fee, per agent. So how does it work for you guys in Boston doing leases?
Yeah, and this is a great question because of the timing of it. Historically, we've always collected a 1 month's a fee equal to 1 month's rent paid by the tenant. So, for
Ah,
example, Vic, you're renting a $4,000 a month 1 bedroom. You're going to pay me $4,000 as that fee.
mhm.
If you had your own agent that represented you, that agent would get 2,000. I would get 2,000. However,
Okay.
as of August 1st, Governor Maura Healey has signed legislation into law that now specifies that a tenant cannot pay that fee unless the tenant hires an agent to find them a home. And more or less what that now changes is, Vic, you're on Zillow,
Mhm.
you inquire in regards to my listing, and you want to schedule to see it, but you don't have an agent. I need to get compensated by my landlord client because by law, unless you hired me,
Mhm.
you would not be responsible to pay a fee.
That's interesting. That's very similar to the Fair Act that was just passed in New York. Are you familiar with the Fair Act, FARE?
No.
Very similar. They're not allowed to pass the broker fee on to the tenant anymore. The landlord has to pay all of that. And what's happening now is, since that took effect, and again, this is, if you guys want to learn more about the Fair Act, watch last week's episode of the Relocation Rundown with Rachel DeSalvo, and she talks about that Fair Act, where now the landlords are saying, okay, well, if you want me to pay the entire broker fee, we're going to up the rent. And that's
Mhm.
what they're doing. So now it's still evening out. Agents are still getting paid. Agents are still doing the work, but the way the compensation is being handled, it's really, I mean, at the end of the day, it's being all put on the tenants on the rent side of it. So
In
it kind of
in
sounds very similar.
Yeah, it does. And personally, like I've thought about it. I sold a condo and I'm currently renting before I figure out where we're going to go next. Somewhere local, of course. But whether we move outside the city or what, um, I think I would personally pay a one-time fee than $300 a month more in rent of a place that I'm probably going to be at for 2 years. So you look at it as an increase of $3,600 in year one, in another $3,600 in year two. You've now, call it, a $4,400 apartment. You're now paying an extra almost $3,000 in
Mhm.
payments because of that offset.
It's funny
Um,
because that's actually good for the landlord in the long run. And when you own 100 units, right, Phil? That's not a bad thing. I
New
see Phil
Hampshire's
up here throwing it,
New
throwing it,
Hampshire's a
throwing it.
unique thing. Hampshire's a unique market where, and in a lot of the suburban markets outside of Boston on their rentals, there are no fees that a tenant has paid historically. I've never had an agent come to one of my properties up in New Hampshire and ask to be compensated. I don't know that I've ever had an agent represent a prospect up in New Hampshire on a rental either, which is a little different.
Different market. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I know you cover a wide range there in Boston and New England. Let me wrap it up with this, okay? Because I know you're busy. You got a lot on your plate, and so do I. I want to respect your time. Phil, if I was now, I've already done this, but for those who haven't been to Boston before, okay? If they were going to come through your town, they had 24 hours. What would you recommend they do? Like, what's for breakfast? What's an activity they can do before lunch? Where should they go for lunch? What should they do in the afternoon? What's for dinner? Where do they get a drink? What's a good rooftop place? What's a good event or attraction that you would recommend somebody doing? They got 24 hours in Boston. What is
Yeah,
your perfect day like?
and I think the city of Boston is a perfect city for 24 hours. You can certainly do it for a week if you wanted, but we're such a small city that once you get in, I would pop over to the North End, and then just pretty much just go on a walking tour of the city, um, going from the North
Yeah.
End over into the Seaport District. Do a quick early lunch over there, and then make your way through downtown neighborhood, get over into the back bay. And you can go walk the parks. You can go, into different stores on Newberry Street, which is where our all the high end brands are. Um,
Is that the Freedom Trail that you
so
can
you
walk along right
you
there?
can you can walk through the entire Freedom Trail and just go down that way, and that's what I would do. But
Okay.
most importantly, I would end at Fenway for a Red Sox game at 7:10 or 7:05 whenever they start,
Oh yeah.
and you can cover Boston, in my opinion, in a day. Um, as long, and just follow that freedom trail. You'll see everything. There's a lot more that you can do. You can go into 10 museums if you want, but for me, if I saw one or two, that would be plenty.
Mhm.
But definitely make sure that for somebody that hasn't been to Fenway, whether you're a Dodgers fan, a Yankees fan, like I think if you're a baseball fan, Fenway is a really cool stadium to go see and be in.
I agree. I understand it's one of the last, actually the last true ballpark, not a
Hmm.
stadium. It's
Yeah.
it's a ballpark, and it's not very big, but it was majestic when I was there. I was there during the Yankees and Boston Red Sox series in October, no, September, I should say, and hit the bleacher bar on your recommendation, by the way,
Yep.
and I had a blast, man. It was fantastic. It was great.
Yeah, and Fenway is, like you said, Fenway is definitely a ballpark. There are
Yeah.
seats that you're sitting in that you are not facing and positioned out towards the field. You can still get seats at Fenway that are directly behind a pole, holding up the stadium. So it is very unique, but it is definitely something that if you're a baseball fan, you got to check out once.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I had an opportunity to do that. Thanks for all the recommendations. So I want to make sure all you guys know if you are thinking about buying, selling, or relocating to Boston, Massachusetts, you got to talk to my guy, Phil MacArthur at Windriff Real Estate. He knows his stuff. He's a native. Get him a couple of vodka sodas. Watch that Boston accent come out. He'll help you make sure everything's all good. Smart guy, savvy real estate investor, and somebody I'm really proud to call my friend there on the East Coast, man. So thanks so much for joining us, Phil. I really appreciate your time. And when I'm back on the East Coast or when you're on the West Coast, dude, we got to link up. We got to hang out a little bit more and catch up some more off the Instagram live. You know what I mean? Keep it personal.
Don would love that. Thanks for having me, Vic.
Yeah, no worries, my friend. Make it a great day. And thanks to all you guys who joined us on Instagram Live. Next week, we have some friends from Atlanta joining us right here on the Relocation. Right now, we're going to learn about Atlanta real estate. And hey, Phil, let's not forget to contact Steve Hale over there in DC. And let's get that referral working and get you guys back connected, okay?
That's right. Love it.
All right, guys. Thanks again, Phil. And thanks
Yeah.
to everybody for watching. Enjoy the rest of
Thanks,
your day,
Vic.
guys. Take care.